Welcome to this lecture on the principles of ecology. Today, we are going to explore the fascinating world of ecosystems. We will learn how our planet is divided into distinct zones, each with its own unique rules, climate, and inhabitants. Understanding these different types of ecosystems is the first step to understanding how life survives, adapts, and thrives on Earth. Let us dive in. To begin, imagine you are walking through a massive, diverse neighborhood where every single house has a completely different environment inside. In one house, it is freezing cold and covered in ice, while in another, it is hot, dry, and filled with sand. The Earth operates in the exact same way. It is divided into distinct rooms or zones that we call ecosystems. Each of these zones has its own unique set of rules, weather patterns, and living residents that have adapted perfectly to survive there. By understanding these different rooms, we can begin to see how the entire planet functions as one giant, interconnected home for life. Now that we have an intuitive picture, let us look at the formal scientific definition. In the study of ecology, an ecosystem is defined as a specific biological community of interacting organisms combined with their physical environment. It is not just the animals and plants, it is how they interact with the soil, the water, and the sunlight. Every single type of ecosystem represents a unique balance of energy flow and nutrient cycling. This balance is tailored specifically to the physical constraints of that exact location, meaning the rules of survival change depending on where you are on the planet. Building on that definition, how do we actually classify these environments? When we talk about types of ecosystems, we primarily divide them based on whether they are located on land or in water. Terrestrial ecosystems are land-based. They are largely defined by their climate, temperature, and the types of plants that grow there. Think of lush forests, sweeping grasslands, and barren deserts. On the other hand, aquatic ecosystems are water-based. These are defined by the salt content, depth, and flow of the water, which naturally divides them into freshwater systems, like rivers, and marine systems, like the open ocean. Understanding these classifications leads us to a critical question. Why does this matter? It is absolutely crucial because each type of ecosystem provides unique and irreplaceable services to our planet. For example, marine ecosystems, like our oceans, regulate the global climate and provide a massive portion of the oxygen we breathe every day. Meanwhile, terrestrial ecosystems, like forests, act as giant sponges that absorb carbon dioxide, helping to keep global warming in check. If we did not classify and study these ecosystems separately, we would not know how to protect them, or understand how destroying a coral reef could trigger a chain reaction, harming human survival. While it is easy to see the visual differences between a forest and a desert, visual observation is not enough for science. To truly understand the difference between various types of ecosystems, ecologists measure how much life-sustaining energy each ecosystem can actually produce. This metric is incredibly powerful because it strips away the visual differences and gives us a hard numerical value to compare different environments. By calculating this energy, we can mathematically prove why certain ecosystem types are bustling with millions of living creatures, while others remain mostly barren and can only support a handful of highly specialized species. This brings us to the mathematical representation of that energy. The fundamental concept we use is called net primary productivity. The formula is NPP equals GPP minus R. Let us break down what these symbols mean. NPP stands for net primary productivity, usually measured in grams of carbon per square meter per year. This is the usable plant energy available for animals to eat. GPP represents gross primary productivity, which is the total amount of solar energy that plants capture through photosynthesis. Finally, R represents respiration, which is the energy the plants themselves must burn just to stay alive and grow. Conceptually, this formula simply says that the energy available to the rest of the ecosystem is the total energy captured minus the energy the plants use for themselves. If a region gets more sunlight and rain, GPP increases, which in turn increases the overall NPP. Now that we have our formula, let us see this with a concrete example by calculating the productivity of a tropical rainforest. We are given that the massive trees in the rainforest capture a total of 3,000 units of energy. This is our GPP. However, they use 1,800 units to maintain their own biological processes, which is our R. We want to find the available energy for herbivores. We substitute these values into our productivity equation, subtracting 1,800 from 3,000. This step isolates the surplus energy. The final answer shows that the rainforest has 1,200 units of energy left over. Physically, this massive amount of surplus energy explains why tropical rainforests are packed with diverse layers of insects, birds, and mammals. Following that impressive rainforest calculation, let us do the exact same calculation for a subtropical desert ecosystem. In the desert, the plants capture only 250 units of energy, heavily limited by the lack of water. This is our new GPP. We must subtract the 150 units that these tough desert plants need to survive the harsh heat, which is our R. Subtracting 150 from 250 gives us our final answer. The desert has only 100 units of available energy. This physically represents the intense struggle for survival in extreme terrestrial ecosystems, where very little new plant mass is created each year to support a food web. By comparing these two mathematical results, we uncover a profound ecological truth. We see a stark contrast. The rainforest provides 1,200 units of energy, while the desert provides only 100. We can physically interpret this to mean that the rainforest ecosystem type can support 12 times more biological activity than the desert ecosystem type. High energy availability directly translates to high biodiversity. This proves that the physical climate, the sunlight, the rain, the temperature, ultimately dictates the biological capacity of any ecosystem on Earth. This understanding of plant energy leads us to another important formula: secondary productivity. This measures how energy flows through different types of ecosystems, specifically how much energy is successfully transferred to the next level of the food chain. The formula is E-fish equals NPP multiplied by 0.10. Here, E-fish represents the energy actually stored in the bodies of the fish for their own growth. NPP is the starting energy block provided by the plants. The 0.10 is the mathematical decimal equivalent of the 10% ecological efficiency rule. Conceptually, this means that as you move up the food chain, 90% of the energy is lost to heat and movement, and only 10% is retained. If the starting NPP increases, the energy reaching the predators will also proportionally increase. Before we conclude, let us apply this secondary productivity formula to an aquatic ecosystem type, specifically the open ocean. We are given that microscopic plants in a certain patch of the ocean have a net primary productivity of 800 grams of carbon per square meter. Small fish eat them, but only convert 10% of this energy into their own body mass. We want to find how much energy is actually stored in the fish. We take our starting energy block of 800 and multiply it by 0.10. The final answer is 80 grams of carbon per square meter. This physically means that energy drops off very quickly as you move up the food chain, perfectly illustrating why you find fewer massive predators like sharks compared to billions of tiny plankton. Now that we have calculated how energy flows, let us look at this diagram to visualize how all these ecosystem types are organized. At the very top, we have the overarching concept of ecosystems. Notice how it immediately splits into two main branches, terrestrial on the left and aquatic on the right. Following the terrestrial branch down, you can see it divides into specific land-based environments like forests, grasslands, deserts, and tundra, each defined by their climate. On the right, the aquatic branch splits based on salt content into freshwater systems, like lakes and rivers, and marine systems, like oceans and coral reefs. This flowchart beautifully summarizes the incredible diversity of life's habitats on our planet. To wrap up our lecture, let us review the key takeaways. First, we learned that ecosystems are specific biological communities interacting with their unique physical environments. Second, we saw that these are broadly categorized into terrestrial realms, defined by climate, and aquatic realms, defined by water properties. Third, we discovered that we can mathematically compare these environments using net primary productivity, which measures the actual life-sustaining energy available. Finally, through our calculations, we proved that the physical conditions of an ecosystem strictly dictate how much biological diversity it can support. You now have a solid mathematical understanding of the different types of ecosystems on Earth. Great job today!